4 groups are coming together to make sure people in Alabama have the information they need to stay safe from COVID-19. Medical experts are hosting virtual COVID info sessions to answer people's questions about the virus and the vaccine. The Alabama Department of Public Health will talk about vaccine distribution. The goal is to keep the public informed so they can make the best choice for themselves when it comes to getting the vaccine.
People perish because of lack of knowledge. And so we don't want people out there not taking the vaccine because they didn't know or based on something that they heard from, someone that was not an expert or knowledgeable in the information that they were providing.
For how to sign up for these info sessions, visit rocketcitynow.com.